3, 2, 1. Walk with me through the cellar door. A storm is coming, Fred says. A portal to a more skeptical world.
Cellar Door Skeptics begins right now. Prepare for the revolution with your hosts, Christopher Tanner and Chris Hanna.
Oh, welcome to Cellar Door Skeptics. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. We are planning an amazing show tonight. I have a great guest that we met through our buddy, the Mindful Skeptic Voice, and this gentleman worked to help promote Yang Gang way back in the day, and is now currently working on promoting the protests in Detroit, and soon he's going to Georgia. But before we get into that, let me bring in Mr. Chris Hanna. How are you tonight, sir?
I am good. As good as can be. 11,000 cases in Ohio, so woo, we're all gonna die.
They just keep going up and up, don't they?
This is the worst. This is the worst game of like. I don't know, it's like instead of Price is Right, where you don't want to bid over, they just keep overbidding. I feel like I'm trapped in like an online bidding war.
Yeah, it's really is exactly what that feels like. I mean, it really is. It's disgusting. I mean, and it's funny because I ranted about it last week, and I had somebody message me, a friend of the show, and he was like, "Yeah, technically speaking, they were all worried about face cameras and people being able to have facial recognition identity. They should be excited now that this doesn't happen." And I was like, "Oh, that's 100% true. Like, I never thought of that. That's a great point that the guy brought up." So it's kind of exciting to be able to be in this time, but it's not exciting that a lot of people are getting sick. And actually, speaking of getting sick, our co-host, they had a scare. They don't know what's going on. And so they're all kind of getting tested right now. So Buddy's not going to be able to join us tonight for the pure fact that they're taking care of their COVID situation in Canada, which happens to also be a conservative think tank in that area.
Yeah, they're not wearing masks as they probably should. Much like a lot of people in Ohio here aren't wearing masks like they probably should. And in the middle of this country, where if you look at the numbers, it's like skyrocketing through the roof in flyover country, right? Where all the politicians to just fly over the mountains. And I don't know. It's sad to see some of these people not being anywhere near any kind of resource for hospitals and healthcare. And hopefully the vaccines come through and help everybody out. But also, hopefully, it's kind of a sad thing, but like hopefully everybody in the middle of our country and a lot of the conservatives get enough of a scare that they actually do start to take the science seriously. They see the benefits of believing in vaccines and following the experts' advice on things. I'm not too keen that it'll make too many changes, but there will be some people who, using the fallacy of personal experience, will have some epiphanies in the near future. And I just hope it doesn't hurt too many people to change that mindset.
I would agree. And that's kind of the nice thing, is that hopefully people will be more open to having their mind changed, right? And
yeah, when you're on a ventilator.
Yeah. And well, hopefully not that bad. In a couple of weeks, we actually are going to have on Abby again to talk about the new vaccines, kind of talk about the work she's actually done, because she's actually been involved in, even in a minor way, which she'll tell you because she's very humble. She's been involved in a minor way in helping vaccine research for COVID for the last, I think 6 to 8 months she's been working on it. So I've been reaching out to her, and we're working on getting a time for the show. We're just a little later than her normally likes. So it may be pre-recorded or it may be live. So we'll 100% post that ahead of time so that if anybody wants to get questions in to ask an actual doctoral candidate or doctoral scientist.
Yeah, no, she's postdoctoral. She's legitimate research scientist with a doctorate. So she's as much legit as you can be.
So before we get into my rant or get into the show, I have a video, Hannah, I made really quick. And this is news that literally came out today. As I was prepping for the show tonight, this news came out today.
Ba, ba, ba.
So I'm going to play the video. And if you don't know, Trump's essentially said goodbye. And if you have a drink,
let's all say goodbye in a fun-filled way. It's time.
You know what? Bye-bye.
And
She said bye-bye without making a deal.
Bye-bye.
I very calmly said, if you're not going to give us strong borders, bye-bye.
Out of time.
Bye-bye.
If they said alligator, we would have said
Bye-bye.
okay.
Bye-bye.
Truck, baby,
Bye-bye.
Excuse me, could you tell
Bye-bye.
me? In the shape, rattlesnake.
What you understand? The bye or the bye? Bye-bye.
Bye. Go home to mommy.
Let's all say goodbye in a fun-filled way.
I love that caption.
Bye-bye.
The caption for it.
And a happy day. Now stomp, stomp, stomp. And clap, clap, clap. Repeat after me in this goodbye.
Okay, what song is that? First off, I've never heard that before.
All right. It's from the Learning Station.
Okay.
It's an actual kid bye-bye song. I'll have to look up the exact name. Hold on, give me a second here. It is called Brain Breaks Action Songs for Children, the Goodbye Song. I don't know. I was Googling goodbye songs, and
it sounds like those songs that my kids like. They have like the cleanup song and shake your sillies out and whatever other songs we have for doing those things. The videos on YouTube that have like 9 million views, and they're like just playing like ding dong ding dong. It's just infuriating when you're like, we have 150 like or whatever. You know, it's just like okay, so. It's like there was a guy on Netflix that had watched the Lord of the Rings trilogy every day for like 7 years or something like that. Like it was like a streaming, whatever it was. Like they said, it had been more, the entire trilogy more than once every day, like 1.2 times or something. It's just always on. Well, a special needs person or something who is comforted by those movies, which meanest truth, all the wars and everything, like this is comfort. But some people, like to watch the videos. So there's those kids videos just play on loop for some families, just always racking up videos.
Yeah, and I don't know. Maybe that's it. I found that song very entertaining, I guess. So
it was a chuckle.
Just kind of couldn't help myself. So
bye.
Bye-bye. So
that's actually one of my favorite SNL skits of all time. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye.
It is. I love David Spade, and Helen Hunt. I don't know. I agree with you. Like I had to include that because it's iconic. So
it is.
So before we get too far into the show, I have a little intro for our first segment. So, essentially what we've been doing is working as an organization to try and change and commit to something different. So what I wanted to do is I found an article, and I know normally we do quick saves at the end, but this relates to our first topic. The Voting Rights of 1965 flatly prohibits defendants' efforts to disenfranchise black people and assault our republic. That is an actual act. That is actually something that exists in our democracy. And with Trump suing everybody, there's been a little bit of a change in Michigan last week. So we've been told time and time again that things are changing, right? We've been told that America is a little bit less racist than it ever used to be. We've been told Black Lives Matter and not to use it, right? Because you could just say all lives matter and let's not focus on skin color. We've been told that if we protest, it's done against the government's wishes, then it's just complete violence and inappropriate. We've been told that if we want to protest, to do it peacefully. We've been told rioting does not help the cause, but have never been given alternative measures to use. This year, Cellar Door Skeptics is going to commit very strongly to working towards giving light to stories about people changing America. Since people will tell you that your way or the Black Lives Matter team does not work and violates something that is so inarticulate to them that they can't give us what they think we should do to change. We will focus on finding ways to ensure that we are able to give voice and let stories be told for those who want to do the work in America. Yesterday, I came across an article, which is kind of what I was talking about before, with the legal team of Michigan Welfare Rights suing the Trump campaign as well as Donald Trump himself for voter disenfranchisement. That is, they are claiming that he's using his propaganda machine to try and stop votes in predominantly black cities. The article talks about how the struggle to get out and vote is now being called into question because the Trump campaign is actively targeting specific cities that are majority of minority voters, and that they all have been succumbed to fraud campaign. So instead of Trump focusing on all of Michigan, he's literally focusing on minority neighborhoods.
Yeah.
What we see in the lawsuit. What's that?
It's the same thing they did in Philadelphia, just got tossed out. Same reasons.
Yeah. What we see in this lawsuit should reflect what we're going to talk about in our daily lives, right? We continue to think that these deaths at the hands of police officers are just going to pass and that electing a normal president will resolve these issues. What we're missing is the fact that times have not gotten better. Society is not accepting Black Lives Matter as equal to white lives. And with that, this road to normalcy, if that even exists, is not going to start with just electing Biden. 2 weeks ago, I believe it was, I spoke very briefly about having a relief for the end of the tyranny that we can call the Trump administration. I openly said that we need to take our time for a moment for happiness amongst this ugly 4 years. What I miss, though, is that my privilege shows in that moment. These moments are not always given to all folks and minorities who suffer the most from having this privilege stripped from them. I was once told that we share the same stress that Black folks share in our daily lives, raising, sleeping, and being a parent. But what we don't share is where my privilege comes in, where my skin color does not affect the stress level of it. Every day, I do not have to worry about how I will be treated differently for what I look like. What this lawsuit is doing is helping to remind me that this fight's not over and that we need more people to stand up and fight, and we need more people to engage in fixing racist laws and removing racist politicians from the government. What we need to do right now is to rise up and fight. And that is what this article helped me feel the need to continue to fight, to stand up, to focus on change, and to ensure what we do for everyone. And then that way, at some point, we can stop worrying about saying all lives matter, and we can focus today on Black Lives Matter, so that way, at some point in the future,
it really is.
We'll see some of this racism end. And with that being said, our first segment, and this is a commitment I'm making to the show, is that a lot of our news segments are going to be specifically focused on figuring out how to advance agendas that may not be as popular, progressive agendas that are working towards not just accepting Biden and this mediocre Democratic cause, but to fighting daily. I want to play a video for you real quick before we go any farther and bring our guest in from Detroit Will Breathe, which has been essentially become the new site that is containing all the movement for the Black Lives community inside of Detroit at this current time.
Days, 11, 12 days, 2 weeks, 21 days. It's been a month already.
Day 41, we just getting started.
It's day 50. 55 days, we prepared to go another 55 days.
It's been 65 days.
71 days out here.
75 days later, I say that we are freedom fighters.
Day 100!
We ain't gon' let up. Whole squad here, we fed up. We ain't gon' let up. Whole squad here, we fed up. We ain't gon' let up. Whole squad here, we fed up. We ain't gon' let up. Whole squad here, we fed up. So we're taking these steps. What's going on? I know that it's wrong. Just take a deep breath. Gotta be strong and keep moving on. We ain't gon' let up. Whole squad here, we fed up. We ain't gon' let up. Whole squad here, we fed up. I'm getting sick and tired of being sick and tired. When the hate gon' stop getting pulled over, I ain't even driving. I just pray to God it ain't a racist cop. If I go to jail, don't even put me in a holding cell. I'm finding out they really trying to trap me in the system, put me in a prison. When I'm finding out, not me, young king, but they trying to do me like I'm Rodney. Gotta find me. I ain't hiding if you looking for me. I'm in my streets with about 3,000 people who ain't leaving till we get some justice. I mean it if you think I'm bluffing. The police, you know they can't be trusted. So we gotta stand up for it. The people united will never be divided. Got a chance just for it. Gotta plan stuff for it. Looking at their budget like fuck it. We gon' just demand most of it. Got a lot of stuff that we can do with that. We could get some money to the school with that. Tell me what you would do if some of you was black. We ain't got no option, now we shoot it back. Blah. We ain't gon' let up. Whole squad here, we fed up. We ain't gon' let up. Whole squad here, we fed up. We ain't gon' let up. Whole squad here, we fed up. We ain't gon' let up. Whole squad here, we fed up. So I'm taking these steps. What's going on? I know that it's wrong. Just take a deep breath. Gotta be strong and keep moving on. We ain't gon' let up. Whole squad here, we fed up. We ain't gon' let up. Whole squad here, we fed up. Look what they did to G. George. Look what they did to Bree. Rihanna. Look what they did to E. Look what they did to me. Hit me with tear gas, pepper spray to the face, and I couldn't see. Then the next week, DPD ran me over with an SUV. You know that they don't care about us. Anytime that you hear about us, they say that we violent, causing a riot. Okay, let me clear it all up. They don't like it when you telling the truth, and when your skin got that melanin too, they wanna silence that. So they gon' show it to your protest, riot, get shields, and you looking like, damn, where the riot at? You know it's all part of their plan, but God's plan way larger than man. I've been working hard as I can, know what's coming, see it all in advance. You know it's fate when it fall in your hands, and everybody around you all understand. What it's gonna take is the people together, and you know they hate to see us together. Let's go. We ain't gon' let up. Whole squad here, we fed up. We ain't gon' let up. Whole squad here, we fed up. We ain't gon' let up. Whole squad here, we fed up. We ain't gon' let up. Whole squad here, we fed up. So I'm taking these steps. What's going on? I know that it's wrong. Just take a deep breath. Gotta be strong and keep moving on. We ain't gon' let up. Whole squad here, we fed up. We ain't gon' let up. Whole squad here, we fed up.
March today! March today! March today! March today! March today! March today! March today!
Hey. Just threw me right in there after that, huh? Like, no words, just here you go. Oh, it looks like you're on mute, bud.
Yeah, you muted yourself up in here.
There you go. Hey. So I just been talking to myself for the last like 30 seconds, but that's all right. So yes, I threw you in here because we're bringing in one of the guys that has been very close to this. We'll call it 100-day protest, but in the long run, it's a lot longer than 100 days.
Yeah,
right.
It's still ongoing. I think we're almost approaching day 180 here soon. But now a lot of like the daily marches have kind of transitioned into more car caravans, digital organizing efforts, etc., and like flooding like city council lines, like Zoom calls and stuff like that.
Yes, and the reason I wanted to have you on specifically is because you've spent the last, we'll call it 180 days, a couple of days and change, right? Yeah. And you spent the last 180 days documenting this on the front line. So every day, every time there's a protest, you're out there, you're taking pictures. In a few minutes, we could show all your work and actually talk through some of this. You could tell some stories.
Oh, absolutely.
But the idea is we wanted to have you on because we say, hey, okay, hey, if we're going to look at making a change, right? If we're going to look at, as a podcast, as a video cast saying, hey, what do we want to do to enact policies? We have to look at where we're at right now and where we're starting from. We can't just say, let's get the policy. We actually have to understand so we can empathize with the people that are out there, empathize with the people this is affecting, because while maybe it doesn't affect me in the same ways that does somebody else, in the long run, it's affecting all of us as a humankind, and
well, who better to talk to than a person down on the front? I mean, you know what I mean? Like everybody can sit back here in West Michigan and Cleveland, Ohio. Like I've got my own protests and stuff going on around here, but I mean, who better to talk to than someone who's been down there holding hands and passing out water and taking pictures with people and doing whatever it is you guys do down there? I mean, those are the people you talk to.
Yeah. I mean, the Detroit, it's been insane, and I'm very happy to be on this podcast to just share my words. I can't say I speak directly for DWB as a representative,
Yeah,
but
no.
I can say that I am friends with practically like every single person from the protests now. Like we're all
Yeah.
just kind of like one big family.
It's family.
And
Yeah.
yeah, you know, I mean, Detroit. Thank you for having Detroit be the subject here, because Detroit is, to my knowledge, out of the major cities. I don't know how you want to qualify that, but out of all the major cities in America, Detroit is the blackest. And really, it's just been surreal seeing the amount of support while marching with Detroit Will Breathe and all the other organizations. I'm just shocked at the fact that they're still going. I'm not shocked that they're still going, but it's like Detroit has not rioted. Detroit has not burnt anything down, though it's not that that's off the table, because if the system keeps, messing with peaceful protesters, people have their limits, and every single time that there has been a police presence, prior a ban that was enacted, it was just open game. I mean, tear gas, riot shields, LRADs, military grade equipment against peaceful protesters. They literally, it's, there was no justification. And when I go online and I see, like, let's say I look at like Rashida Tlaib's reply guys, right? Like I'm on Twitter, I'm looking at the replies, and she's speaking positively of Detroit protests. And then all her reply guys are like, yeah, but what about the looting, the rioting, the violence? And it's like, that doesn't exist.
It's always whataboutism and things along those lines. One of the things that it's been interesting to see is that Detroit has a really strong historical history when it comes to rioting. The 67 riots, we hit the 50-year mark on that. And that has been a huge thing throughout NPR, interviewing people that have been and were major parts of that, or African-American police officers walking through. They would wear their uniform for half the day, and then they would go walk in the crowds for the other half. It's an interesting dichotomy in the city, seeing like the different varieties of things happening. Detroit has been relatively low violence. There's always moments, and Detroit itself is itself a violent city when you compare to other parts of the world. But like if you look at the situations throughout Flint and stuff like that, like we saw horrible situations when it comes to drinking water, and we didn't see them burn the city down. They protest, they fought about it. Detroit, I will also say, has been relatively well behaved. It's nice to see these protests kind of counteracting the idea that the GOP narrative that says that all of these minorities are getting together and just beating up white businesses and destroying white property. It's not the case. And if you look at that music video that we just played, there's a lot of smiles in there. There was some blood and some tears, but there's a lot of smiles. And that's the big difference, in my opinion.
And I will note, every time that there has been any type of occurrence of violence, it has been provoked straight by the police, no warning, charge in with riot shields and just start beating the shit out of people, frankly. I mean, it really had, I think what triggered it, one of the ones, someone ate a banana and threw a banana peel at the riot line. So I guess they viewed that as, oh, this is a flying object. They're throwing weapons at us. We can go in now. And it's just like, are you kidding? It's like Mario Kart. Someone threw a banana peel, and then you don't see like the riot team coming out and like Mario and Luigi and stuff.
It's a banana, not a blue shield. It's a banana.
I swear to God, like,
I will fist fight. I will fist fight best friends over the blue shield.
You mean the blue shell?
Blue shell.
Or, is it the blue shell? I think. Yeah,
it's a shell.
Blue shell. Yeah.
But regardless, yeah. The violence, it's now thankfully few and far between. I'll talk about that a bit more as we like make our way down this. But yeah, this right here is day one. And honestly, Detroit Will Breathe wasn't really an organization at this time. It was pretty much the word in Detroit, get over to 1301 3rd, which is where one of the main police precincts and like headquarters was. And I get there at 4 p.m. and by like 4:30, there's like nearly 1,000 people out here. And it wasn't like get here because we're going to do a march or we're going to do something because of George Floyd. It was almost just like a natural gut reaction. Like people were just, no, let's go check this out. Let's see what Detroit does.
What's your connection to Detroit? Have you been there?
I am at 3 years and 2 months now living down here. I moved out from my very, very white hometown, about an hour north. And
Where? What
since
town? I'm curious.
Grand Blanc.
Okay, you play
Yeah,
baseball in that
yeah,
city.
yeah.
Yeah.
Bordering Flint, so it's
Yeah.
like, but yeah, once I moved to Detroit, the city, the soul of the city and the people, it just sucked me in because there's
That's
just
cool.
such of a sense of like you don't have to avoid eye contact in Detroit. People, everyone just views each other as people,
Yeah. Yeah, I represent
yeah.
the 313 and 248 from when I was a kid.
There
I
you
don't
go.
know.
There you go.
It was a long time ago. My parents moved me out and put me in weird little burb and farm town schools, and I wasn't too particularly enthused about that. But
Well, and I think one of the things is and it last year I went to a anarchist commune, I guess is the nicest way to say it, like in Detroit, because there's this,
we're going hard quick here.
Yeah, well, there's this festival
great.
called,
Honestly, great people. It's
Yeah.
like from what I met them in protests,
and they're it's weird because it is a death metal arena, but they're all hippies to some extent, but essentially we went down for Riot Fest, right? And it's kind of funny because the neighborhood is definitely like you could tell it's changing, but they're keeping their house in the old style. They're not letting somebody come in, renovate it so they can to rent it out to a bunch of rich white people. And it's kind of funny because when we were down there, normally people go, well, you got to avoid certain areas of the city, and I'm like, I don't think so. I think as long as you're a nice person and you don't want to be a dick, you don't really have to worry about it, right? Like it's just like, I guess if I walk around in a suit flashing things, and saying I'm better than you, maybe they'll
Anarchism
maybe
is literally an eye for an eye.
But
so that's straightforward.
When we were down there, I talked to some of them because they offer people to come live in the commune, right? And it's like, well, I have kids, I can't do that. Like I'm pretty sure my wife would not be very happy if I brought a bunch of kids to an anarchist commune. But the message and what they talk about and how they want to destabilize the current government format is not because they want riots and endless war. It's because everything is slated as a violent endeavor against minorities. That's what this is. This is just it's them saying, hey, we're stepping up, saying fuck you, I guess, and you can swear I don't care. At this point,
but well, I figured I heard it already in the music video or like what we had earlier. Like, okay, that's the ruling tonight.
We try and be PG-13, but it doesn't ever work, especially because once we start drinking, then everything's off the table. Then it's like,
well, you got to hear some of these chants from Detroit. I mean, they are amazing. They will get you so hyped up, even if like you're not even too plugged in. You're just gonna want to chant like at these Detroit marches. But
so you're saying that Detroit prose and Detroit poetry, we're talking Motown here, right? Like they're gonna have some style. It's gonna be slick.
The big thing that I've seen, like versus like all the other cities, especially like some of the West Coast ones, Portland's pretty good, but like some of the other ones, they don't have any rhythm in their chants, and I'm just like, yo, you gotta have like a rhythm. You gotta keep people on beat here, or else it's just the chant's gonna fade in like 20 seconds. Anyways, but this is literally day one, and this day one I only captured what would you call it? Just the gathering. There was a march, and then I will say before we get into day two, later that night after the march, I think some out of town white kid might have like got a little violent with a cop car or something. And this kid probably was not from Detroit. But that put DPD on high alert. And a little bit of context, the mayor and the chief of police both do not live in Detroit. They're very much this kind of like neoliberal, just old guard.
Grosse Pointe maybe?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much like the other day, Grosse Pointe Antifa was trending as a joke, and it was amazing.
Yeah,
but like Detroit,
I've hung out with people
they were posting memes like left and right about that. But our chief of police, not good. He's been a very, very cozy member of like the Fox and Friends show. Really friendly with Barr, doing rides over the city. Even Trump, I believe, praised him a couple of months ago. Didn't mention him by name, so James Craig was probably a little bit upset about that. But
well, no,
he's
now he probably likes it. He probably doesn't mention by name now. Now he's like, oh, thank God somebody didn't do this.
But yeah, that's just the context of like the head of police on. Okay, a cop car may have gotten screwed up, so then they sent out riot police that night. People got fucked up downtown for protesting. It was declared an unlawful assembly. And then night 2, I get out here, and I see a Free Press journalist at the top just got hit with tear gas, which was I was like, wait, there's supposed to be a little more like considerate of the press there. And then I start like hearing, and it's like, wow, they're literally attacking anyone. Like, especially actually if you have a camera, because you're documenting potentially what the wrongdoing would be. That kid was just got blindly billy clubbed for just walking on the sidewalk. You know, he was just having a walk, and then they started turning around traffic. This guy was really pissed off about that, and you know, I love his expression, so I had to capture that. But yeah, that night was just crazy because they eventually brought out the riot squad and all that. I believe they call it the what is it, like the gang intel unit or something like that. But had some people try to de-arrest, and they did it mostly successfully. But you can see the cops, they already had their gas masks on. Like, it was pretty much what's going to happen. So then this guy starts race baiting all of the black folk on the sidewalk there, saying, "Don't you try it, boy. Don't you try. Don't you eat," you know, like just trying to establish this old school domineerance of like white superiority to rile people on the sidewalk up so he can then go billy club them. And I even like just documented that for a second. Like, I made sure that dude knew I got his picture. And the thing is, though, if I report him, I really don't think much is going to happen. But
now
then
the
they
police
started
chief
kettling.
is all into it.
Yeah, they started kettling. They started really pushing people back. They deployed some flash grenades. No gas rate there. They used gas earlier in the night around there, but they pushed everyone back. You could just see their stance. They were ready to mass arrest. And that was just night 2.
Yeah. Look how many of those things he has in his hand. I mean,
zip
just in his hand, there's a minimum of like 4 or 5 alone.
Yeah. And at that point, my other friend with me, she got kettled into a one exit parking lot where I think it was her and another black dude. And the cops piled in on the black dude, let her go.
Of course.
But it was just like, yeah, no, it's just shit like that. So, you know, this is night 3. So at this point, Mayor Duggan, he's pretty much in bed with like Dan Gilbert, who's like the 15th richest person in the country. That
he owns half of
that
Cleveland
downtown.
too.
Yeah,
he owns Cleveland too.
Yeah, it's Gilbert.
I think he owns the Cavaliers or whatever. Like, yeah,
he probably owns everything. You know, it's just, well, do you think he owns it?
Everybody thinks Quicken Loans is just this innocent little thing. Yeah.
But this night, Gilbert declared a single night curfew, meaning at 8 p.m. you can't just recreationally be downtown.
Duggan, you mean?
I'm sorry, did I say Gilbert? I meant
Duggan. It may have been Gilbert and Duggan, but yeah.
Probably. But 8 o'clock, there are still children here. There are still, you know, people with animals, and they literally, within 60 seconds of it hitting 8 o'clock, tear gas. And then the scariest part, this shot right here was about 3 seconds to them deploying more tear gas towards where I was. I was laying down on the street here with my zoom lens. And a tear gas canister literally just less than 2 feet away, just woo straight past my head. And if you get hit direct impact, that's day 4 there. If you get hit direct impact, you can die. And then after that, everyone was running down Michigan Avenue towards downtown, and they literally just open fired a giant line of rapid spraying rubber bullets. But they're not really rubber bullets. They're steel
grenades,
bullets lightly encased in rubber. And it's a direct impact sort of thing. So they just started spraying everyone that was running away. It was like a full-on militaristic lockdown. That night scared the bejesus out of me. And I even at a certain point saw a squad of volunteer medics, clearly marked medics, right? Running through downtown, trying to get back to their car. And I was driving with my friend, just scoping it out. And we see DPD in an SUV, 2 dudes hanging out the back 2 windows, tear gas canister guns. They were firing from a moving vehicle, tear gas at fleeing medics. So that just kind of gives you like the idea. Peaceful protests, Black Lives Matter, curfew hits, gas them all to death. It was just nuts. And
I don't remember seeing the police.
Crazy.
I don't remember seeing the police using all of these incredibly violent methods for the white supremacists who are walking around saying the Jews will not replace us. And some of the Charleston protests, they didn't immediately start.
Good people on both sides. Come on,
I know.
If you don't know this now, you don't know anything. What's wrong with you?
So I mean, it's just like you see these militaristic responses, and you see how the entire country, the UN, and everybody, as far as the rest of the planet says, like using tear gas gratuitously and using rubber bullets and using these non-violent methods directly in the less than lethal methods.
It's like they are lethal.
It's very, very clear that like yelling boy at a group of black men, like it specifically means something. It is very, very charged language, and it's still blatant and completely it's not transparent at all. We all know exactly what's happening here. And so the question is some of this suffering, some of this pain, some of this stuff that you've been documenting is showing that to people gonna be, is it going to help change the mindset and stuff? Because like that's the whole goal. It's what Chris has said at the beginning of the show is like we need to. What's the next step, right? Holding the current politicians' feet to the fire, getting people like Duggan out of office, and getting your police chief out of office, and all of those kinds of things. Making changes, but it has to be more than just the protests. Like we literally have to either invade or destroy the system or whatever. But I'm curious to see what happens in the near future.
Yeah. Well, before we go too far down that, do you think, like, Hannah, that's a good point, and I don't want to derail your good point, but that's a little bit. I have that because Detroit Will Breathe actually has a list of discussion points on their website that we can go through here in a few minutes.
Yeah, but it is a nice organization.
It is. What I have to do though is I want to stop for a quick second, and I want to actually look at the data because. What happens is, if we're all going to be statistically minded, right, and, if you look at what conservative talking points are, they always want to claim there's more black crime, therefore there's more black this, there's more that. I want to stop for a second because we did this last week with COVID. Last week with COVID, I had a conversation where I broke the goddamn fucking numbers down because some people can't seem to understand statistics. And I think they should just be a class everybody is taught where you don't get like a grade, but you're taught this in high school. How to understand a statistical analysis. Like that should just be like something every senior should have to go through. Just like with
statistics and finance. Like if you taught
understanding
finance.
Media BS, right? Like we should understand
critical thinking 101.
All that. But this is important because if you actually look right here and you look at African Americans are 20.5% of traffic stops. And yes, I have death ratios in a minute, but this is just traffic stop. They're only 14% of the population. That's a gap, right? Like we talk about this, that's a gap. And look here, white people have 73.3% and are 74.7% of the population. So you can see how the trend is down.
Yeah, it's a 1-to-1
population ratio.
Yeah, it's basically 1-to-1. While African Americans, it's close to 2-to-1.
Yeah. Now, here's deaths. Now this is going to have everybody, but the best part about this, and this is I don't care what anybody says. This is my new favorite website. Seriously, like I found this website yesterday, and about like this is amazing. I won't say what I about did. But it actually breaks all the states down from top to bottom, right? And it gives you the statistics with population, total people killed, the average number of killing per person, and then they actually give you a statistic for black people, right? Like it specifically calls out black people, Latino people, and white people, and they explain all of this and everyone. So today, I'm not going to focus on all the other states because we're focused directly on Michigan, right? So let's just look just at Michigan, which, in fairness, they're down compared to everybody else in police killings. But if you look at it, the average of 4.1 to 4.3, or I'm sorry, 4.3 average people out of every police killing are black people, right? That's a lot.
Yeah, when they only
That's
represent a
huge.
vast minority of the total populace for the state itself.
Yes. So when we talked about pulling over, they're higher. Now, police deaths, they're higher. And you want to talk about why people want to protest, why people want to riot, why people want to do these things. Because to me, like, this should institute immediately a riot. Like, to me, it's like, why are we not burning down everything? You know what? Hey, police officers, if you can't acknowledge this publicly, you're fired. That's my opinion. Like, just fire them all. Fuck it. Let's start getting people from. You want to go through police training. You are part of the neighborhood. Think about how many unemployed people we can start putting through police training. It'll do two things, right? It'll help people get in shape, because I could sure as hell use that, right? But a lot of people probably could use it too. But it'll help people create a community voice inside of the police department. That's what it can do. And if you just started firing everybody that doesn't accept that statistic or doesn't want to acknowledge it, that there's a problem, and you fired every one of them, we would immediately start a change in rehiring and all this. And yes, will it create a little bit of anarchy? Will it make people that are rich feel uncomfortable?
It won't create too much anarchy, though. There are a bunch of cities that literally did disband their police. They disbanded them and they rehired everyone. Everyone who was a police officer had to go through the whole new rehiring process. And they found those cities that had really positive results. I mean, Mark, I guess, are they talking at all about this kind of stuff, like this number stuff, right? Like, the nitty-gritty details, do they talk about that much when it comes to this? Because, like, one of the things that we're making arguments about here is, like, it's great to be on the front lines and, like, hold the sign and do the picket, but also, is that kind of like working its way through to, like, strategy, organizing, let's talk about data, let's enlighten people with real information? Or is it really just like kind of like signy and just like doing stuff like that? Like, are people really talking hard data?
It is not signy. In signy, when you say signy, I think of performative activism, which I don't know if you guys remember. If you guys remember, and I think it was like in early June or whatever, and everyone changed their profile pictures to just like a black square or whatever, right?
Yeah.
People were doing that, and it's just like, I stand for the Black Lives Matter movement. And
it screwed over a whole bunch of communications for the BLM hashtag.
Exactly. It disrupted so many. Like, this is like day 4 of 5 straight of the first day of the protest. We're getting gas, and it's like, oh, but Shelly put the black square on her profile. Would you look at that? Is that going to help with bail funds? But
weren't people putting like the hashtag, hey, danger in this area, hashtag, people were using that information?
and it was not organized nearly as much as it is now. At this point, we have numbers, but we're still figuring things out. Now, I would say Detroit is well equipped for, if we're going to do a march, we've got security, bike blockers to navigate traffic and make sure we can get through safe. We've got medics. We've got unlimited food, snacks, waters, masks, juice, hand sanitizer. I mean, we have got it locked down to a T.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I think we want, ideally, to kind of blueprint that in some way to every city that wants to do active protests. And there you go. That's a great quote right there. I think that was maybe like the first couple of days, at least first week. But it's the fact that we weren't being violent. We weren't doing anything that's like, that could warrant that type of response. And eventually, that one-day curfew turned into a week-long curfew. But halfway through that week-long curfew, after I believe 127 people were brutally beaten and gassed on night 5, the next night it was even bigger numbers, and they just kept marching. And actually, the curfew pretty much got determined. I forgot the term that was used, but it was pretty much like, okay, we're going to stand down on enforcing this. And people in Detroit were like, oh my God, look at what we did by keep going. Even though 127 people the last night, were zip tied to the point of, losing.
There's some of those pictures where people are just hog tied in the street.
Yeah. Well, look at this one, for example. Wait, can you go back one? I couldn't really, I should have used a different f-stop. But you got, a little black kid. I think that was his like uncle or something. And then right behind there, that's DPD SUV. And the part I wanted to show, there was a massive wall of of zip ties in the back. So it's kind of like, it starts all peaceful. It's just a kid running around, but in the background there,
Yeah.
that's waiting right around the corner. I think this is day 7. So this is one day after protesting the curfew successfully. But people wanted to, everywhere we walked in the city, there were so many Detroiters, lifelong Detroiters. Just, we can't march because of whatever reason, but oh my God, it was amazing. And I wanted to capture those moments, as I was walking around mostly the perimeter of the marches for the most part. It's just, I love the creativity and the signage. There's George Floyd's murderers. People getting off work, the Nike store panicking and boarding up. This is just straight up Detroit in action. And
I like a lot of the diversity in the images too. Like,
oh yeah,
one of the things that you hear on the news a lot is like it very much is a monolithic black movement, but you really do see a lot of diversity in these groups. I mean, it looks like real people. Having spent a lot of time in Detroit and having spent a lot of time in relatively decent sized cities, Chris and Grand Rapids, and I spent time there too. That's where the first time we ever met was walking downtown through the arts festival, right downtown through the streets with everybody and anybody in one of the most diverse things ever, and everyone was eating on the streets, and there were religious people holding signs, and we were yelling at them because we thoroughly disagree with the way their patriarchal and racist tendencies were. I mean, it's kind of a kindling thing where like a diversity of ideas can happen and be there, but there was relatively low danger of police presence or whatever. In Detroit, there's always that. Even on a nice day, there's always that Detroit police presence. Like, it's a city with an army, and
which is weird.
They were ready to go. I mean, so fast.
Yeah.
Like when I went to that Riot Fest afterwards, we went downtown to the Coney Island, and I'll tell you what.
Which one?
Yeah.
On
yeah.
Lafayette.
Yeah, Lafayette
great choice. Lafayette or American, they're both pretty damn good.
Yeah.
Both of them right next to each other.
Americana got the corner when they used to just two little bowling alleys, and now Americana's on the corner, and they look like an A&W, which I saw it and I was just like horrified. But Lafayette looks like someone's basement, and the guys that have been serving in there, I have not changed. I'm pretty sure they're immortal, because when I was 5 and when I was 25, they look like the same dude. It's amazing.
Well, the sad thing is there's cops sitting outside. And if you go down to the corner of the American, they either stand in the restaurant or right outside there. And I'll be honest, the first time I go to Detroit typically for concerts or comedy shows. That's always been a thing, because I'm from Toledo. And when I was younger, we didn't go to Detroit because my parents were ultra conservative people that
we don't go to that place with the jazz music.
I remember the first time I went to a Tigers game, and this is at the old stadium. My dad was too cheap to pay for parking, so my dad parks on a side road and carries a baseball bat, like a mini baseball bat with him, because he's worried that we're gonna get jumped. Like, I'm dead serious. Like, I'm 7, 8 years old. That's my impression. Like, I'm going to a Tigers game and somebody's going to kill me afterwards. And in the long run, it never happens.
Like, roughly?
What?
What year would that be, like, roughly?
So, I am 37, so 30 years ago. So
the 67 uprising stigma has definitely taken hold, like, pretty boldly on the sports goers.
like Detroit Tigers Stadium. Like, I have it on my wall. I was just looking for it. I've got the 1968 World Series image of the Detroit Tigers full stadium from a helicopter shot. And like the Detroit Tigers Stadium was a different thing than Comerica Park.
But
it's like you hear it's just like
is
like that in the two of them.
It's that idea. It's that embedded idea. Like I remember being in a team. And my father essentially saying he doesn't believe in affirmative action. He doesn't believe everybody should be able to pull themselves up by their bootstraps because he did that, right? Like, that was my upbringing. And it took, like, actually having to engage and be part of another community to understand that like, that's bullshit. Like that is just the dumbest thing I've ever heard of, and that's like this conspiracy theory that conservatives tell themselves to feel better at night. It's like a bedtime story, there you go, or a fairy tale, you know. And but you know, like,
Bootstraps instead of tooth fairies. That's how we do on Fox News.
Yeah, but it kind of goes back to this picture. Like, I have a question about this picture. Is the officer marching in solidarity, or is he marching just because he has to?
So
Solidarity.
that's a contested point. This dude, I think his last name is Cox, like Cox, and I briefly like spoke with him. It kind of seemed like he maybe, I don't know, 20, 30, 40% of him like was kind of like, yeah, I do want to march with them, because maybe he does agree that the curfew is BS, right? Maybe he does agree with like that, the aspects that Detroiters were literally just holding signs and saying Black Lives Matter and then nearly lost our lives for doing so. But he was pretty all right. He was just, I think more so, he was just kind of like a feathering point between the lead DPD cars and the front of the protest.
Makes more sense.
So the white cop sent the black cop out to be a buffer.
Jesus, I mean, maybe, but
I mean, my assumption is they're probably like, listen, we need to do something. And I wouldn't put it past me. I mean, I wouldn't put it past them to do something like that.
Yeah,
well, we had
that's like the NPR stuff. Yeah, well, the NPR stuff that I was talking about for the Detroit protests was the same thing.
Yeah.
That black
in Grand
cops
Rapids, that was a big thing. Like, the police chief essentially is saying, well, you know, we're not against this and we're gonna kneel with you. And, you know, like, I think even on our show we cover that. Like, okay, that's kind of cool, right? I agree with it, but that's not enough. Like, you can kneel all you want, but you're not going to do anything to change.
We're going to kneel with you,
up.
and then we're going to gas you later.
Yeah. It's just bullshit.
When the cameras are out, best friends, besties, Instagram.
Don't even get me started about like the local media channels and like how they really. Oh, I love that. That's one of my favorite shots right there. Just like with the not a license to kill, like the middle finger, and it's like the cops like right in front. It's like. That's the thing. That's the thing. It's like a lot of people in Detroit are saying is, hey, no good cops in a racist system. We're talking about the roots of policing out here and trying to mass educate on that, because it's really hard to say, well, we can just reform it or we could just replace it with a bunch of good guys or new guys. And it's like, yeah, but the system and where it came from still allows for a lot of underlying racism to kind of trickle into the modern policy. And, you know, that attaches to those statistics earlier that you're showing, and it's just like, yeah, driving while black is a serious thing, even in the blackest big city in America, and yeah, Detroit,
when I went to school in Saginaw, one of my roommates was black and he got pulled over for going 27 and a 25.
Ooh, I got that one in Hamtramck, but that's a different story.
Hamtramck.
I was going, dude. I was just going to the bar like for a quick drink, and they're like, "You're going a little fast. What are you doing here?" Anyways, don't let me get on Hamtramck. This is about Detroit right now.
Let's stay away from Hamtramck.
Hamtramck and Ypsilanti. Michigan's got a tongue for the names, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, you know it.
Kalamazoo is a real place.
I remember like showing that like to my buddy. He's like, I just like this city because it's such a silly name. I'm like, yeah, okay.
Well, where I went to college, the river that went through the same name was Tittabawassee. And that was just like a running theme after about 7 or 8 beers of all the frat boys running around. Just, I can say a word that has 5 syllables. So I don't know. It's nice to see that the people in Detroit are just kind of, they're being responsible with this. They're talking about the real things. They're talking about statistics, talking about organization. It's moving in a proper direction. They managed to get past. So like when you were talking about the police essentially just immediately trying to quell and just drown it out. And then they managed to push past it. And then you see that if you can manage to get past that initial investment of blood, there's a cost, right? Pay the ferryman across the river Styx. Get yourself, you have your blood quota that you have to pay, and then you may be given a pass to, be an activist in the way which you formed. And then like the average middle class white American doesn't understand that there's a blood quota, and Detroit paid that, and then it sounds like they've got something decent going on now. I mean, it's never going to be perfect and easy, but I mean, they made it past the cops trying to shut them down completely. And when they realized they couldn't do it, then it's like, okay, well, we have to deal with this, as opposed to just trying to crush it right out of the gate. Because stopping a fire and stopping the kindling are two different things.
Oh, 100%. And I mean, that kindling of, if we're even talking about like what, I guess you could use this as like a DPD's thing. It's like, yeah, we stomped out the fire those first 5 days, day 6, 7, 8, 9, they're great. And, you know, if you fast forward to about day 30 or so, I think it's day 31, we were in Southwest Detroit, and the 4th precinct was deployed to there. They tried to like change one of our routes, and we were kind of like, nah, screw that. We're going to keep going back the same way we came. And at a certain point, some of the cops just got overwhelmed. That's like, they defied us. And what happened? They drove an SUV through the protesters.
Yeah.
And they nearly killed so many of my friends. Yeah. And that's that was just day 30. And then like around day 50 or something, or day like 49 or something, a young black kid just turned, I think, like 19, 20 or something, got absolutely just ravaged by the intel unit. We went out there. That was the banana peel day. And, you know, people were just demanding answers from DPD. This is the SUV night. So this is in Southwest Detroit. We're all rallying. We're deploying new chants. We're having just a great time. And that's what we see when we get over there. So what do we do? Okay, no, we're going to go back our route. That's what we had planned. We're just going to walk right through them. We're not going to engage with them. We're not trying, like, people are going to flip them off. But, you know, it's like...
Yeah. But we're not going to hit their cars and break their windows.
Yeah, no, like, that is not on the agenda. And then our bike blogger team got in front of one of those SUVs that's being a little more aggressive. They started revving it. And my shots aren't too good here. My buddy Adam got a really good shot of people literally on the hood of that car. But this car just pretty much floored it and nearly killed at least, I'd say, 3 to 5 of my friends.
So I have to ask a quick question.
The video of that was in the music video.
Yeah, it was.
Why not deploy, like, isn't there somebody that could pop the tires or something? I mean, maybe that's more dangerous, but to me, it's almost
as soon as you touch it, man.
No, yeah, as soon as you, like, if they have a reason, like, you screwed with our car, that means you're trying to kill us. Therefore, we can pretty much counteract, you know?
Okay.
As soon as you do anything.
Like, they have a very militaristic mindset in these moments. That was one of the dudes that got ran over. And then we had a press conference the next day about it. If you want to, like, fast forward to, like, day, probably, like, 40, I'd say it's at least, like, 43. I'll be able to, like, just say when. But overall, it's, like, 6,500 photos, so... Okay, actually, it'll be coming up probably.
It's a different world. So quick question, just on your background.
Sure.
Photography, is this a natural place? Is this an educated place? Where did you come to photography?
I literally bought a camera, like with my I think it's like a college an excess like money I had from like what was it, my high school graduation party. I just had like, you know, like I don't know, like $400 or $500 left, but an entry-level DSLR. It's collected nuts.
Canon or Nikon? Big question.
Canon.
There you go.
So,
I married a woman with a master's degree in photography, so this is a big part of my life as well.
It collected dust. I started experimenting. I traveled around with my buddy to like a few cities. We got like some really cheap flights, and I still lived with my parents. And then eventually, I kind of fell on Detroit, and I was kind of like, do I want to make this a thing? Do I want to make this a potential long-term career? And it's kind of like, yeah, I really like photography. And I just kept plugging away. And then eventually in early 2019, the Yang campaign came around. I agreed with what, you know, he was saying. So, and he's relatively small and new at the time. So I was kind of like, okay, I'll go take photos and just send it over to you guys, see what you think. And, you know, that eventually led into a lot more involvement there, which is, I think, when my photography really started to, I guess, tick upwards. But, yeah, I think we're looking for like day 40, like 9 at the latest here. If you just want to do like a fast scroll, I'm trying to find the Hakeem Littleton shooting. That's what it was. And we, by the way, oh, yep, there you go. Day 43. Up a bit. And so again, I was there with one of my friends. I don't have too many brutality pictures, but the other photographers, my buddies, they captured some really brutal stuff. But this is pretty much people outside of the crime scene, which is where DPD pretty much brutally murdered Hakeem Littleton. They didn't have to. They disarmed him, and then they beat him up a bit, and then they just literally shot him in the head while he was on the ground.
Police cameras, body cameras.
Oh, we only got.
There's one right there.
We got, I think, like a few released, but that was it. It was a selective release of the body cams. Which,
So
again,
Mayor
like,
Duggan-
why is that a thing? Why is that a thing? Like,
You know
I'm
what
just
they-
losing my mind over here.
Well,
You know,
why
why do
don't
we
they
allow
actually
that?
have it upload to a website? Think about this. You know, like we have all these independent media channels. We have all these people that want to fund shit. Why don't they upload this stuff directly to like a cloud that broadcasts it pretty much in real time?
You have to give every
You know how
single
much
one
more
a SIM
honest-
card.
They could do that. They
I
have
know.
the ability to do
Yeah.
that, but they won't.
But it's not in
But
their
they
best
won't. They have
interest to do
conviction.
that.
You know? Or lack
It's not in their
thereof.
best interest to be transparent because you
I
can't
love this
maintain
lady.
you can't maintain a system like this. That lady right there, you do not sass that lady. That lady is telling that boy what is up.
That was pretty much like the weaponry we had against the cops that day, you know?
To send grandma out, be like, Grandma, I need you to go take care of that that battalion, that platoon right
But,
there.
this was way later. Earlier, before that picture was taken, DPD literally just moved in. They did not declare it, you know, an unlawful assembly or anything like that. They literally just moved in with batons, all that stuff, and they targeted the lead organizers of Detroit Will Breathe. They put them in chokeholds. They did some really cruel stuff there, and they also gassed a residential neighborhood. And most of those gas canisters were return fire. People literally just picked them up and threw them back. And half the cops didn't have gas masks on, so they just had to pull out. So, like, literally, banana peels and throwing back tear gas was all Detroit had to do.
We planned and prepared for everything except for them throwing our own ammunition back in our faces and banana peels.
I need to get a video of that banana peel and just like put the Mario Kart throwing sound effect over it. But
That's pretty wild.
Yeah, and that was day 3. So then we went like another. I'm gonna like try to pace this out because I see it disappeared for a second. It's probably grabbing
Yeah.
something. But then after that, we had a public kind of like tribunal showcasing what happened. You know, eventually we did get some damning footage where, again, chief of police says like 4 shots in total were fired. It turns out to be 10 shots in total were fired. Oh, well, he was doing this and that. Okay, we have video now that you guys have him on the ground, disarmed, and an officer walks by as he's on the ground and just literally just shoots him in the back of the head. Just kill shot. They had him completely detained, and they still kill shotted him. And then they called in the good old fire department to literally hose down the crime scene before they put up, you know, like the little markers, like when things like no, they just hosed it down and left.
Yeah, it's like this is only a
didn't
place where
happen.
someone died. We don't need to have any kind of real DNA, physical
Of course
evidence of
No,
those kind
none
of
of that.
things.
It's really pesky,
Yeah.
actually, for our department. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like,
Paperwork, you know, dead bodies and paperwork. We prefer to just throw them into Detroit River, you know,
oh yeah,
and just
you know?
call it done. It's a
Detroit
frustrating
River,
thing
yeah.
it's a frustrating thing when you think of like the level of systemic involvement that we're looking at here. So like the whole point of these arguments, of these protests, is that this is a systemic problem, right? That like this is a thing, part of the structure of the policing system developed initially to protect the landed owners, right? Developed to protect the people who own land and materials in the past.
Property, yeah.
The police forces essentially were designed to keep those. As Madison said so eloquently, that we need to protect the minority of the opulent from the non-land owning populace. And in the end, what we're running into is that this systemic problem is very clear and very evident in these situations, but we have people looking at that and seeing two completely different things. And so like your documentation, everything that you're showing here it's wonderful information. It's wonderful data. It's a great treasure trove of literal evidence of, you know, the I guess, the community and diversity of the people who are trying to say this is a problem, and it's a very clear also indicator of this system itself trying to quash and control that, and basically put people into their predetermined slots and places. And I think it's very important what you've been doing, and I think that it is definitely a benefit to what Detroit has, is what you've been doing in your shooting. And then anything that you obviously connection with the Andrew Yang and smaller political foils are also going to be a benefit to just adding more variety and voices to the system. So cheers. I mean, I'm not, I wasn't that familiar with your work, and after this, it's something that, it's definitely something that I think people should check out and see, and like see as a real thing on the ground in what has been a peaceful protest on for mostly in Detroit, which is impressive.
Yeah. I mean, I love the city and I'm really proud of it. And they're still growing. We've got legal battles now. The city's trying to like countersue RSU for saying you probably shouldn't be able to gas people that are singing in the middle of Woodward Avenue over a 1 block span. Like, it's just kind of,
you might hit one of them fancy old cars. So we definitely need to make sure that
can't have that. But I'm happy. You guys can feel free to like put the link or whatever in the description and share it out.
We will,
because really, I just want to be able to document what's been happening. That I don't have a slant here. I just have an objective, like, well, I'm just trying to document, and DPD's nearly murdered me, and Detroit will breathe in them. They've given me snacks and masks and hand sanitizer. So have you seen a difference? Have there been a situation with you and another person, and like they went to the other person just because your skin tone was different? In terms of just like the police coming and like going to people, and they were like, "You're fine," but these other people no. No, they will target any POC before a white person. That's just how the system rolls. Really? And I actually escaped an arrest because of that, and I also used like some really quick white guy reasoning with a cop that was like, I was literally on the ground of Woodward Avenue. They were doing an entrapment operation because the curfew was enacted. I was walking back to my car to get out of the city, and they entrapped about 30 of us in Woodward Avenue. Cop just screamed like above me, like, "You should have gone home. You should have gone home." And I'm like, I was trying to, dude. And hey, look at me. I got my camera gear here. You see it? Like, I showed him all it. And it's like, as I'm on the ground with my hands up and stuff, like on my back, and I'm just like, I think the wording that sold it was, I'm doing my job just like you're doing your job. And after that, me and 2 other white people, okay, you can go back to your cars, but hurry up. Everyone else, though, zip ties.
Yeah.
Dude.
Well, and that's...
Dude.
I want to focus. I want to transition for a quick second, and then we're gonna get into the demands. But I want to transition a quick second into this, because these are some of the people at the forefront of it too, right?
Some of the main leads.
Yes, and so here, he obviously, I think he's the one that did the music video. At least that
actually was the song.
Yeah. So it's at least his music, if not also his video. I don't know if he does video too or not, but so here's one of, he started, and in this article, this is why I like this article, and I don't care what anyone says, but this is one of my favorite articles ever, because it's literally documenting when they got in, why they got in, and what they're doing for, right? Yeah. And it gives descriptions for every one of the activists in here, explaining why they're getting into this and having a conversation more publicly than has ever had to happen before. And I think when we talk about, the sad time is that somebody had to die to spark this again. Mm-hmm. And the nice thing is that, hey, we're seeing protests all across America uniform. Now, here's my challenge is, how do we continue to keep this going, not for 100 days, not for 180 days, not for 2 years or 4 years, but for 10, for 20 years, until we can stop it? Because how
about the least next 4 years, right? With the next president that's coming through, hold us feet to the damn fire.
But think about it this way: we had Ferguson, right? And there were riots. I literally remember sitting in my basement watching TV, watching live feeds. And this is before a lot of independent media had the access that they do now. And watching these things and thinking, we're telling people to stop burning things down, but we can't stop murdering them. Like, I don't care if the guy reaches into your car to grab a gun. I don't care. Whether that's true or not, you're in a car. You don't have to then pull the same gun out and shoot them multiple times in the back. You don't got to do that. Why are we training cops to shoot people to kill? I get it. If they have a gun, fine. I understand the logic behind it. But the same token, let's talk about some of those Western movies we watched growing up. How many times did you see that white sheriff shoot a gun out of somebody's hand? Like, how many times? Come on, folks. Like this. Maybe that's an illusion, but for fuck's sake, we can train
it's
people
statistics
to do this.
on that. It's statistics on that. It's like they go for the largest core, the largest piece of meat. And the largest piece of meat is essentially
I get that.
It's all of your organs.
Have to, though.
In
you
a
don't
tube.
have to. You don't have to do these things.
It shouldn't be the lethal weapon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's my point. It's the first thing drawn shouldn't be the lethal weapon. Although they say that some of the stun weapons and stuff like that are frighteningly dangerous, but it should always be the non-lethal. But then you look at the categorization for non-lethal, and you're looking at a 16-ounce hunk of rubber at like 300 feet per second and blow one eyeball out of the side of your head. There's categorizations and exactly all of those kinds of specifics. What do rubber bullets even do?
What do they actually do?
Well, they're supposed to be shot towards the ground to take out knees and ankles and basically make you submissive to whatever situation. It's not to headshot people. Like they don't even use these things in the trained manner. One, because they're not trained on how to use these weapons. A lot of times they just hand it out and doled out to people who are not particularly well qualified to be using them. But also it's these are weapons that have been condemned and outlawed all over the world. And the United States has been slow to pick up that because it is a very effective way to put down uprisings, and we in the freest country in the world. So
freedom, love it. As long as you fit this list of qualifications.
So Jim Jeffries talks about this. He's like with his beautiful Australian accent, and he's like, that people is just like Americans. I'm not going to do an Australian accent because I'm not an asshole, but he just basically says, like, I've looked at it. We talked about it. All kinds of other people have said, like, Americans, you know what? You guys just might not be the freest country in the world. You might not be. And then he explains about like the number of people that are in prison and all that kind of stuff. So like all of these things are a huge deal, part of the systemic problem. And having a list of people in Detroit that are doing things that are working through all of these, all of these real protests and real moves towards progress. It's awesome to see, and it's awesome to have someone that's documenting it. There's always photographers all over the place, and your voice is unique and it's interesting, and it's pretty cool to have on our show.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to be here. I even linked in the StreamYard private chat one of the, I would say, I do love the Free Press article you got pulled up there, but this one, Metro Times, and shout out me, cover photo for that one.
Boom, boom. Check it out.
Yeah. This really takes it into the concept of how there's been this almost kind of like conservative leaning bias towards the older members of the city based on how they saw the protests portrayed in the media. And it's a real honest reaction, and that this really encapsulates that, I think, in a really good article. So
it's a well-written Detroit News article.
This is Detroit Metro Times.
Well, no, what I mean is like the Detroit News is obviously going hard, skewing towards the right, and the Free Press is going left. And so like a well-written as opposed to a reaction.
I would say Free Press is moderate, Detroit News is a bit more right-wing, and Metro Times is a bit more left-wing. Cool. That's the way I would classify it. It's cool to take 5 quickly. Gotta run to the bathroom stuff.
Oh yeah, no problem.
All right.
So I think his point is good here. I mean, they talk about we're in survival mode. You're not you're not thinking collectively. You're thinking about the individual. There's a lack of consciousness here. I think that's very important to understand when we talk through some of these things. I think one of the big things here, and I want to look at the budget a minute, I don't know. This is turning into a bigger segment than I thought it would.
This is kind of a big topic, so.
But here, I know we talked about having a science segment, but we might cut it. We might cut that tonight and move it to next week. But so here's
science ain't going nowhere.
Yeah. Here's the fiscal budget, and this is why I wanted to talk through this, is because this is their budget for this year, right? So they came up with this last year, which means right now they're in planning phases for next year. And when we talk about defunding the police and we talk about all these things, we have to actually look through what is the budget, right? So they talk about, their fiscal budget, which is weird. It's a weird time frame, October to September, which technically means we're in FY21 now, right?
Yeah.
So, I don't know. There's that. So they talk about funding sources, right? So
it probably had
$753 million.
It probably had something associated with the election. So there's an election change and change of control and power or something like that. So they probably have to, count that into it. But anyways, their gross appropriation is $750 million.
Yeah. Yep. Then they talk about sources, where does it come from? I'm not as personally, to me, that's not as worrying. But then here is where we get into transportation, school aid, corrections. Corrections is $2 million in corrections.
Yeah.
And then here's the state. I'm sorry.
Here's the state COVID right all here. Over your microphone.
Oh, I'm sorry. Corrections is $2 billion.
Yeah.
$2 billion in corrections funds, and the state police is $728 million.
Yeah, so between those two, you're looking at almost $3 billion total expenditure for prisons and the police.
Yeah.
That's a pretty big chunk of the budget.
Yeah, so let's see if they actually break down. Oh, law enforcement gets $110 million. Specialized services gets $164
What does
million.
that mean?
I don't know. Maybe we'll find out.
Those are the kneecap busters.
Yep. Field services is $371 million.
Those are the blues.
So then we go, okay, well, hold on. Field services, okay, they're still, so they're only spending $13 million, $14 million on IT. That's probably good, right? So we kind of go, okay, well, let's talk about what's our major budget topics. Oh, are you gonna? Oh, you're not gonna give it to us? Oh man, really? Oh, I'm gonna get trooper enlistment strength. Like I don't care about any of that.
I mean, if you're looking to maintain a steady police force, you might be, but for the average people.
But I'm not, because when we talk about $12 million budgeted for recruits, we just sit there and go, well, that's a lot, right? And here, so you can see here, enlisted personnel continues to go up. Recruit graduates are going down. That's a problem. But then I come down to, this is the bigger one, right? Forensic caseload. I'm watching my forensic caseload continue to drop, yet they continue to ask for an increase. So the highest it was in 2016. Here's 2016. Oh, and we're still over it, but yet our forensic caseload is well under it by almost half. Almost half. But yeah, I need more people. Tell me how that's logical.
Well, I would argue that the majority of the people that are doing things like forensic policing, those are, you'd be looking at detectives and stuff. So like the blues are the guys out patrolling, and then your detectives and the people that are looking at things that are going to be dealing in backlogs, those are going to be, specialized and highly trained.
Yep.
Air quotes.
Yeah, here's your thing. It's mainly a canine unit, right? Bomb squad. Here's your specialized services, which you asked about earlier, right? So in here, we don't see anything about social services. I haven't seen boo about social services yet in this budget.
Yeah,
we have road patrol, and it's like, all right, I'm going to keep moving past it. Emergency disaster relief funds. Okay, fine. Again, moving past this is not really I'm not worried about that. Oh, so out of this whole budget, and what did we say the budget was, Hannah?
I didn't hear the original. $750 million.
728 million for state police. 0 is spent on social services. Right?
Well, I mean, what's
0.
the health and human services right down on the bottom left?
But what does that mean, though? Does that actually mean social? Because they don't break this out in here.
It's health and human services.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that, but like, I don't know exactly where that. Let's see, try to find it. It said health and human services, so I'm guessing that's something, but I didn't see it specifically in there. Can you do a document search? Just look up human or health or something. That's the first one. Keep going until we get to a section.
2.
That's it? Just those 2 places. Yep. Yeah. So like when you hear the defund the police, that's what we're talking about. It's essentially removing police force necessity and police force responsibilities from cases where we have someone who's in a mental health crisis, when we have people who need personal help that a social worker would be giving, those kinds of things that police don't need to be doing. That's what we all say. We should defund the police so that we can fund those kinds of things. But it seems like the biggest thing on the budget list there is a health and human services without being explained.
But it's not in the state police. So when we talk about defunding the state police, that's not part of their area.
This is the Michigan budget itself.
Yes, this is Michigan. I'm focusing only on one area, right?
Always got it. Yeah, so the health and human services, that's the state of Michigan, not the state police.
Yes. And so, like when we talk about those things, this is why this data, you sit here and you go, okay, well, what is any of this?
Yeah, where's the social services information in here?
Yeah, like it's not at all, and that's my problem. That's my problem with this whole thing. Is we're talking about what do they want to do, where they want to go, how do they want to be a part of this whole thing?
We're not a military occupying force.
Yeah.
I walked into that. Welcome back.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we
tricked you. We're actually police officers. We're here to occupy you.
Shit.
Well, we just
shit.
You're coming with us. I have your IP address. Anyway,
we went
through the budget. We just literally went through the budget, and there was no when we talk about defunding the police and everybody gets all up in arms, there's no part in their budget that actually discusses social services inside of the police budget, right?
Yeah.
And that's the problem I have with.
But they're
with
charged
the whole
with that as a responsibility.
But we're charged with that as a responsibility. And the problem I have is we sit here and we talk through these things and we want to make changes and we want to look at defunding the police. They're looking at a $728 million budget. What do we got to do to take that to allow to spread it out over other things? Now, here, this is what they claim they're going to do. And I won't say that this is wrong, but the Bridges to Blue Citizen Advisory Council is their first attempt as of September to assist department leadership by providing outside insight into MSP policies, practices that will affect the public and help generate new ideas. Now, I don't know if I agree with this. I agree with the idea of this. I just don't know if I agree with who's on it and if it's really
the fact they probably spent a crap load of money of people just to make that logo.
The entire budget for the program was actually
in 18 minutes on GIMP online on open source. It's like that's a $10 million logo. Don't be knocking that. Whatever.
Hold on. Hey, Michigan State Police, if you want to contact cellardoorskeptics@gmail.com, we'll be happy to do this for $100 donation.
Yeah.
We'll fix that. That's an ugly logo. We'll fix it and give it to you new. That's an ugly. I'm sorry. It is an ugly logo. Anyway, I want to move on. So if you go to this website, which I have linked in the description, you can actually click on everybody and read about who they are. So this guy is a director of strategic partnership at a bank. That's who they have served. Okay. Again, should we have high-level people serving?
Okay.
Maybe. I think we have to be very careful, though, because my idea and what I'm hearing from other activists is that we don't want this upper crest echelon coming in and talking through this. And I'm not saying that he won't be a good person because he has had to suffer a lot of issues, but we have to be very careful we have to be very careful on where we go with a lot of this stuff, because if
Well,
we get to
Ben Carson isn't going to be the guy to advise the police here. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's not the guy we're looking for. The people in this list, none of them are probably going to be the people that were listed in the Metro Times.
You're
thing.
wrong. You're actually
Were
wrong.
they?
There is some people. There is actually some very decent people. In fairness, and again, I would say I like academics. I just kind of have a hard time that they're making a big deal out of his career at the bank. And it's like, well, I'm more interested that he's the director of advancement of colored people, right? He's part of the NAACP. Like, I'm more interested in that than I care that he works at a bank, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So now we have an educator. That's probably a decent pick, right? You know, so we have an educator. We have another person, you know, and I actually have met Omar before, in other things that I've done. So like, I don't personally have a relationship with him, but I have met Omar and I've had a conversation. I've shook his hand before COVID, obviously. And I think he's a really decent, personally, I think he's a decent individual.
Something like this Bridges to Blue thing and some of these folks that are on here. Is this something that you guys like? Is this something that people are even aware of in the protest marches and stuff like that? Is that like this is a part of our outreach, or is this like that's a bunch of
knee jerk, at least viewed as this is like a token policy where it's like, look at what we're doing. We are doing something really good for the community, and oh wow, we have a lot of POCs advising us that we've got it right. We're good. No.
Yeah, we're doing it on Instagram.
You spend 90% of your budget on that damn logo, and I'm just
thoughts and prayers. Thoughts and prayers.
Also,
it'll all be fixed.
Ties to big banks. It's like, why are we flexing that as opposed to the NAACP? And it's like, you know, a part of me thinks upper middle class white comfort. You know, I think of like a lot of variables here. Don't get me wrong. Have there been? I mean, on day one, before the march started, the cops in Detroit seemed to be very cool with everything. We agree with everything. And then it just takes a few tiny little things for them to say, nope, bring out the riot shields, bring out everything. And, you know, it's just that like rapid accelerant to, you know, the police state and like all of that and that response. It's just like, that's why people have that like, no, this ain't it, because this is not going to fix all of the issues. And by the way, this is just MSP. This is not, you know, every local community and all that, you know. So right now it seems like that DWB's focus is on the fact that like, shouldn't you have people that live in Detroit police Detroit, you know, and not just some dude like 30 miles north from like white suburbia, you know, that's just
and
we're just like a plantation owner who owns land.
No, hold on. Don't go
Come
that
on,
far, man.
I honestly like the reminiscence. Not so much that, but like the reminiscence of the systemic structure that we have here. Like we have people removed from the community, essentially given like dominion and power over the community, economic control, all of these kind of economic equality things. So these are things that, you know, economic slavery is a real thing that like some people on the left really do argue that this is a new method that which they keep people specifically where they are, so economic classes and stuff like that. Like these are things where there's someone coming in who is running a lot of things that really do feel like they are not simply this is like it's a perverted capitalist system. It's like this is starting to feel like more like a case system. Like you are literally in this case, and you know it's unfortunate to see that, but like it feels like people coming in that are running the show, that are special appointees and special managers, and it just doesn't feel like it's a nationally community driven thing. It feels like someone else, the masters and whatever economic policy or whatever political or power based policy are coming into these communities and policing everything. It's not local, and that would be definitely a big thing. I don't know if there's any way Duggan could ever do that. I don't really think he could. I don't think he has it in him.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's, you know, that kind of gets into the last portion of this, right? You know, like we've talked about a lot of things, you know, like, and we've gone an hour and a half, you know,
I was told it's 30 minutes, damn it.
You're right. And you
can be like, I quit. Anytime
you
want,
can hit
man.
a button and you're gone. Like, and it's okay. Yeah. Like, I understand. I apologize for not explaining to you the podcast technique of our show. Our show, what happens is when we get into a topic, sometimes
That's real. Sometimes it matters.
I get derailed and I just keep going because like,
Yeah.
and this is something that I've talked about for a long time, you know, on this show. Like it's been a big part of our show, and like we feel bad to some extent because we are sequestered in our little bubbles and our activism is only so much. And so like for me, this is extremely big because it's like there's so much more out there. And I think like sometimes the discussion has to happen is everybody has a role. My role may not have to be the guy on the front lines every time. Would I like to do it? Have I done it twice this year? Yes. Would I like to do it every single day? Absolutely. But I at some point we have to be very careful that we don't take too many white people and put them on the front line and like say you're the guys that should be talking. You know, like even in this show right here, we can discuss that there's three white guys having a conversation about policies that don't affect us. But at the same time, the difference is that I'm not talking about my point of view very often per se. We're not talking about your point of view or your other point of view. We're talking about experience. And then now we're going to have a conversation about what do we want to look at to change. And this is not ideas that came from my brain or your brain or anyone. You know, anybody on this show's brain did not have these specific ideas that said, hey, we're going to propagate these. This is coming from the Detroit Will Breathe Collective, who we should be listening to and supporting very heavily because they're giving, you know, what they call demands. They explain to say, hey, how do we fix this? Well, here's their opinion on how to fix it, right? Defunding the police, right? And I think the bigger thing is this, demilitarized.
Yes.
Yeah. I would say would have led with demilitarize or
you don't get a choice in this. I know. It. So
well, it's just because it's such a loaded word.
I don't care. I don't care. Actually,
it's heavily politicized right now, and it's often hijacked, I'd say, by the right wing. So I agree with you on the aspect of marketing of it. But keep in mind, at the top, we say priorities voted on June 8th. I was there. There was literally a vote on like priority of the issues, which ones should be pushed the hardest. Does everyone agree with all of these in the item list? You know, the leaders down here, and a lot of them with Detroit Will Breathe, are headed by people that Black Detroiters have been here their entire lives. And they understand that, you know, you do have to market things a certain way. And effectively, the list of demands is that. So this was voted on by the people. And that's effectively what we have right there, at least right now. And will it evolve? I suspect it will. But we'll see what happens, especially over the winter here, because they have not stopped.
Well, I have to ask a question though. Does it matter? I get that we have to market it, but does it matter to some extent? Like I get why it matters in capitalism, and I understand the logic of it. But in the long run, if we talk about the humanistic part of this, I don't need to market humanism. If I have to market humanism, you are not a very moral fucking person. I'm sorry.
I agree. Like, yeah.
Like I have a hard time comprehending that sometimes. And maybe it's because I've been drinking. Maybe it's because I've had to have this conversation more times with conservative, you know, family members and friends than I care to. And maybe this is, you know, part of what people on the front lines feel is that like they're like, well, we do this every day. You're doing it for 10, 15 minutes on a fucking Facebook post. Fuck you.
Yeah.
You know. But the idea of having to try and market defund as, well, we don't want to take money away from the police. We want to redistribute the funds to somebody else. I'm so sick of having to have that conversation.
Yeah.
I feel like if you want to join the political conversation, and this is where I get very like soapboxy and say, fuck people that need to vote, you know, like where we have to have 1 million people all give their voice. If your high school education basically says, I don't understand what defund means, then fuck you. Like, it doesn't mean, like, do a little bit of research. You got a fucking Google machine? Do you have a fucking iPhone or a fucking Samsung? Can you literally Google, what does defund the police mean? It'll give you an answer in less than 10 fucking seconds. I don't get it. I don't understand the logic in people using it as a deterrent, other than they're saying, I'm lazy and I don't care to know what you want to believe. if
It's
I
the
argue
70s.
with a
But
Christian,
that is that strategy that we're talking
Oh,
about.
yeah.
It's literally like taking like I've seen the Black Lives Matter phrasing, and now it's almost like just transmorphed from the right wing POV, so to speak, into, well, that just means defund the police, and well, what if we have crime, and well, what if, and it's all this fear mongering.
Yeah.
It's
what
a losing
aboutism.
argument.
Yeah, there's circular arguments, whataboutism, and all of those kinds of things. The thing is that the 73 million people that voted for Donald Trump vote every single time. They vote every single time. And in most cases, you have to consider them as a marketing populace. So like the utopian humanitarian, I love the idea that like all humans will utopian understand that being a good person and that human rights are equal rights and everyone should have them. That isn't the case. Humans are animals. We are animals that are very easily manipulated. We still operate from our lower brain in a lot of cases, which is very dangerous. All of those kinds of things. That's why the marketing matters. And that's why we've seen the ability for them to politicize this so much. And it's just, I mean, anybody who has the ability to think about it, we can just look at it and be like, yes, just on the number one, there's a huge area when it comes to like just battling in politics. And if you just bypass that at all, like you look into the next couple of things like End Project Greenlight, most people don't even understand what that is. And then the facial recognition stuff in major cities, they don't know what that is. They think that's Chinese. That happens in America. What are you talking about?
No, in Detroit especially. Project Greenlight is everywhere. I'm not kidding, everywhere. So one of the main campaigns I've seen the DWB doing over the past 50, 60 days is literally just for petitioning. Like, look, we have the stats. This is an incredibly racist because the AI it's so much worse at identifying matches if you're a person of color. And
I know the number of like facial recognition.
Actually, like, oh, we got used all this stuff and this technology to get this person arrested. 9 times out of 10, it's going to be the wrong person. It's
the proven statistics on facial recognition for dark-skinned people is terrible.
Exactly. So why are we investing in this? Why are we investing taxpayer money into this?
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, again, there's so many more.
Yeah, I think that's the main part of this conversation is there's all the demands, there's a discussion, there's where we end up, right? So like the whole point of this segment that turned into basically a full episode. We have one more segment. I will give one. We have to do our last segment that I'm not going to get rid of. But we had this whole conversation essentially around, where are we at now, and what can we do going forward? So there's a list of demands. Our show's not going to stop. We're not going to stop here to say, well, all right, well, we interview somebody from this. What are we going to do? Now's the time to bring on people to say, this is what I feel policy should be enacted. And how do we promote that? Because if we don't stop here, or if we only stop here and don't force the change, in 4 years, it's going to be no different. In 4 years, we could have it 4.
We have the next election for the Senate in 2 years.
Okay,
and the legislative and the people who make laws are the ones that are going to directly affect these policies. So in 2 years, McConnell...
Between that, you need to start at local and then go to state and then go to federal. You can't just magically fix it at federal. Don't get me wrong. You can get good
executive
people at federal. Yeah, but it's just you've got to build it. My answer is grassroots promotion.
Thank you.
People that are doing honest, on-the-ground efforts. Go knock on doors and say, do you know about facial recognition? Do you know how racist and terrible this technology is and how ineffective it is? They'll likely say, whoa, that
sounds
up.
terrible.
Like, I've seen those green lights at the gas station and all that. It's like, yeah, that's screwed up. And then you actually get eventually with enough activism, with enough door knocking, with enough local information
participation,
then you have voters in a local area that then can influence who runs their local area, and then you trickle that and network that out to say the county, and then eventually from the county to the state once you create a proper enough super network. it's on the ground.
It's the long game, like because what's going to happen? The United States itself just finished a census that was slammed shut faster than it expected it to be, and it's probably going to be insufficient because of the pandemic. On top of that, Republicans maintained their majority minus Georgia in the Senate, and they increased or maintained their state representative majorities throughout the entire country. And in the House, they gained seats. Who's going to be doing gerrymandering? Who's going to be doing redistricting after the census comes in? All the state governments that just continue to maintain their conservative majorities, like the same things that we've been trying to fight locally didn't get fixed because people don't understand local elections. Like if the Black Lives Matter and if the protest groups could be basically modified into political action committees. If we could turn BLM into an PAC and really start a revolution politically, because at the end of SLC Punk, right? You're talking,
right?
Yeah, you're at the end of SLC Punk, right? The protagonist of the story realizes that he can't change the system from the outside being an anarchist. He has to change the system from the inside being an anarchist. And that's the whole point. It's like, I think that if all of these movements and all of you protests get into the system and start changing the system from inside, as the boomers essentially become extinct, hopefully we'll see some kind of real progress and a forward progression in our society. But I don't know if that's a guarantee. So like we really have to like kind of modify and manipulate these movements, because like I love protests, I love awesome signs, but in the end, is that changing much?
What are you actually doing?
Yeah. And
so
like
are you going out for a photo op, or are you going out to actually be involved, in mailers and this and that and everything?
And that's the evolution of the protest into political action committee would be so great. Oh, it'd be so
Let's see it
great.
happen. Let's see it happen. We've got some great people that are standing beside, like, Rashida Tlaib doing a wonderful job with Detroit and stuff. And like, really, the movement is not beholden to Rashida Tlaib because she's a politician, but they'll also appreciate if Rashida wants to literally come out and say some words on this stuff. And it's not like vote for me. It's like, no, I dig what you guys are doing and I want to help however I can, and like that's what we need to demand from, the higher leaders, in our state and federal government.
No more Duggan and Kilpatrick's, right?
Yeah, no more Duggan. Duggan's got to go. Chief Craig's got to go. Like, get them all out. Get them all out now.
All right. So 2 things. 1, you're welcome to join us. Our next segment / less segment is called Answering Conservative Questions. You're welcome to join us if you would like. You can stick around. If you don't, you can go ahead and drop off. Not a big deal. But before we get to that here in the next, minute,
Plugs.
Tell everybody where they can find you and tell everybody what you got going on for the next, 3,200 days.
All right. Okay. So, actually, I think I could probably even just comment on this stream or whatever. Can you pull up private chat? I don't think, are you trying to find a way I can pull up my plugs, but
if you send it to me, I can pull it up.
Okay.
Absolutely. Put it in the
so
private
here,
chat.
let's send you my Twitter. So my Twitter is more so it's protests coverage and Yang coverage, because it's just really involved with that. So there's my Twitter, and Insta will be @KO_. Instagram is a lot more protest focused. Twitter is kind of a hodgepodge between what Yang's doing and just really what's going on straight up with protests that I happen to be covering. But I also, I'm happy to come back sometime. I'm happy to also show you guys an article I'm writing. It's about 6,500 words, and the title is Photojournalism versus the Detroit Police Department, and how journalists, just independent, not interfering journalists, have been targeted to minimize the, documentation of police brutality. And I'm going to be releasing that very soon. But I mean, guys, I'd love to continue this conversation, but we are at an hour and 45 in. So I do have to call it for myself for tonight. But thank you so much for having me on. just mad respect for shouting out the blackest big city in America and what they've been doing, because it cannot be ignored. I'm happy to document some history here.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Mark, for joining us tonight, and we look forward to your journey, and hopefully maybe we'll see you on the Georgia journey here at the beginning of the year.
Yes, that'll be fun. Let's eradicate Mitch McConnell's block power. Let's go take some awesome pictures of Ossoff and Warnock, and maybe even I did hear a whisper of maybe Dave Chappelle might be coming down there. So it'd be pretty cool to see,
he's in
what
my
he
neck of
does.
the woods over here in Ohio.
I mean, hey, imagine Dave Chappelle knocking on your door to like, hey, do you know about this runoff race?
That would be pretty amazing. So.
All right, guys, thanks so much for having me, and see you guys soon. Be well.
All right. Stick around. We're going to do answering conservative questions here in just 1 second. Yeah.
Two things. You're missing an apostrophe in conservatives, and that guy, the animation banging his head and turning back and forth. It's like, remember the show Reboot back in the day? The animated TV show is like a cartoon show. Reboot. No, it was so good. But the animation quality was kind of like that 3D Studio Max. Anyways, weird memory lane when I look at the old animation stuff. It's like if you look back at the old stuff. But
it is. In fairness, it is. I sought that out specifically for the. Anyway, so this week's answering conservative questions was presented to me from a friend that says, "Why do you never see an American flag on a Biden house?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And he's like, "Well, Donald Trump Jr. asked us this question." And I said, "Oh, all right, we'll bring it up on the show." So, Hannah, what's your opinion?
Yeah, I live on. So the room that I'm in right now, about 10 feet down, about 15 to 20 feet to the left from the big window, is an American flag, and Biden and Bernie and dogs 2020, all that stuff's been out in my front yard. My house it's a progressive house with an American flag hanging on it. It's I'm not an advanced nationalist. This isn't something that I wear. It's not on my car, but it's real. It's there. And I guess the one big thing that you see is that idea of nationalism, the growth of the personal identity, the identity politics of conservative America is a nationalist identity. It is it's almost a dangerous level of nationalist identity when it comes to what we've seen in global history when it comes to identifying yourself so intensely with a flag, with a nation state, that you're willing to basically do really, really grotesque things. The Biden and the progressives and the Democrats, it's an encompass group of so many different kinds of perspectives and cultures and groups that there's no way that you're going to see just blind adherence to nationalism. So the flag itself is like that ultimate symbol. So you don't see it because you don't need it. I don't personally need the American flag, and I don't need those kinds of symbols in my life and then around me, revalidating and I guess confirming all of my personal perspective. You know what I mean? Like, I don't need that reinforcement. I'm comfortable with where I am. I'm comfortable with what I've got. And I think a lot of other people on the more progressive side of America are like, I live in the country. I love the country. I love the fact that I could burn a flag if I want. I love the fact that I don't have to, there's no like weird compulsory, you have to have an American flag somewhere in your house, just in case the Fuhrer showed up and he didn't see a flag on display in your house. Then what kind of a, whatever, like, those kinds of requirements and things, I don't see that symbology as a necessary thing. And so that may be a driving force as to why you don't see in progressive houses just like outward aggressive nationalism.
For me, it's twofold. So I'm going to go with the PC version versus the non-PC version of
Why?
Tanner.
You've been
Because
banging
I
around
think
with
the
the F word all day, so.
Yeah, well, no. The PC version of me says you don't see a lot of American flags on Biden houses because you don't see a lot of Biden houses until the election time, right? So, like during election time, they're putting out their signs. But I'll tell you what, my neighborhood is predominantly Trump area, right?
Yes.
And I'll tell you what, I saw more Biden signs than I've ever seen. And in fairness, I saw some
did this year
Biden flags that I was very surprised by. Because it's like, I'm not going to put a Biden flag out. Like, yeah, I support Biden, but I'm not going to put a damn $50 flag in front of my house because it's like, you know what flag I'll put is a pirate flag. That's what I'll put. But I'm not going to put a Biden flag out. And the reason you don't see a lot of those out is because people will put American flags out and they don't put the other sign out. Because in the end, their core belief is American. Their core belief is not Trump, is not Biden. And so the answer to the PC answer to the question here is the fact that Biden supporters can also be Americans. They don't need a Biden flag or a Biden sign. Therefore, you're never going to know unless they have a Biden or a Trump sign out. And so, like, the idea that this should be a norm is unscrupulous to me. Like, it's illogical. It's like, why does those two things have to correlate? Now, the non-PC version is because the majority of people that support Biden don't need a flag or a sign outside of their house 24/7 to proclaim the fact that they're a Democrat and that they support middle-of-the-road politics. They're happy with whatever happens and will disagree and dissent when needed. So the fact that they don't have to spend 24/7 telling you they believe something is a sign that you don't need a big American flag out there. And B, a secondary sign that you never know whether they're a Biden or a Trump supporter. Because they're like, I don't have to put a bloody fucking sign in my front of my fucking house to tell you. Like, and my wife and I had this conversation, like when Biden won, right? After day one, she goes, "You gonna take all the signs down?" And I was like, I really don't want to. You know how much of me just wants to leave all my winning signs out? But within one day, in fairness, I got 1 day. I took 1 day for myself. And then after that, I took my signs out. Because I'm not here to say Biden, Harris is the thing. I'm here to say I supported them. And now I'm moving on to how do I fix the economy? How do I fix, racism? How do I fix, minorities being treated incorrectly?
I was surprised to see how quickly all the Trump flags and symbology all came down as well. I figured like people would leave it up because of the like. I mean, Ohio. So like, well, that's what I mean. Like I would have expected people to leave them up a little longer until like today when they finally started the transition. Like today is the day they started the transition. The Trump administration had completely blocked all of the legitimate and actual. So like I figured the signs would stay up at least until that point. And then when it comes to the flag stuff though, like it really is, it's just like, it's a reinforcement thing that some people really, really, really need. Like when just like the idea that someone needs pictures of guns and camo all over everything, all the time, everywhere, to like reinforce the fact that you are a supporter of the Second Amendment. Awesome. Do you need Bible quotes on almost every other post on your Facebook page to reinforce the fact that you are supporting Christianity? The same exact things. Like, do you need to just rub everybody's faces in the stars and bars, right? Like, one, to me, like when you're working so hard to convince people that you are, good with all of those things, sometimes like it seems a little bit insincere. Like if you're just like someone that never shuts up about something, it's just like, are you sure? Or are you really putting on a show? Like, are you really a nationalist, or are you using this for other things? Are you really a Christian? Or are you just like shoving this on our face? And you hear about people that are like pastors doing, things that are not allowed by their churches and by their faith. all of these kinds of things. Like when you're rubbing it so hard and pushing it so hard, it makes it seem a little less sincere. And this is the same thing for me. Is like if I'm just like yelling America, yelling stars and bars, to me, when people do that, it seems less sincere and less honest. So like I don't do it because it seems fake.
Fair enough. All right. As we wrap the show up, we have our quick saves of the week. Hannah, you're first. Nikki Haley.
Yeah. So this was Nick. So Nikki Haley is a she's the
Bailey.
former. Yeah, no, well, in the post is Nikki Haley. Essentially, it's a Reddit post, but Nikki Haley is she's an up and comer in the GOP, and I really don't expect her to go anywhere anytime soon. She's going to be a very important person to watch when it comes to the next couple of elections in the GOP, and she had a major presence in the Trump administration, and so she basically called out Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in the link that I included, which is basically she said that are you suggesting that you want to pay people to stay at home from the to stay home from the money you take by defunding the police, or was that for student debts you wanted to pay off? The new Green Deal, Medicare for all, where's the money? Blah blah blah. So it's the standard GOP argument. It's like you want people to stay home and collect money from all of these things that you want to spend on. And Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who we talked about this in the last episode, and I have just loved the fact that now that the election essentially is over, she has been able to just free thought, free form, just let it rip. And she basically she chastised Nikki Haley in this series of tweets. She's just suggesting that Republicans find the spine to stand up to their corporate donors and fund the same measures they did in March, except without the Wall Street bailout. So essentially, she wants to do the bailout that we saw in the most recent thing with all the things that we helped all the people, the $1,200 per adult, and the children, $500 I think it was for children, and all of that kind of stuff. She wants to see all that, just minus the Wall Street bailout. And Nikki Haley's like, no, what are you going to spend all this money on? And like without a bailout for Wall Street. And so Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez talks about the fact that she wants to defund the police and says it's utterly embarrassing this woman was a governor and still doesn't have a grasp on the public investment. Wonder if she says federal financing works like a piggy bank or a household too. So all this faux seriousness from folks who worship Trump for running the country like his casino. Essentially what she's saying is that Nikki Haley is criticizing her for using, defunding the police, but also saying that is a thing that's going to be affected by any kind of bailout, federal bailout that's going to help a whole bunch of people. It's state governance. It's not the same as federal governance and economic policy. And so like it's one of those things that's just like it was such a solid slap to people who understand basic economic structure and government structure that I just thoroughly enjoyed it, and it made me really happy because like everybody in the Democratic Party has been just calm and concise and trying to get Biden in. Like, please, we'll all conform. We want Biden. And now you're starting to see teeth out again. And it's really nice. I really enjoy that.
That's true. So for my quick save of the week is the girl who challenged Dave Grohl to a drum
I love
battle.
this story.
And I'll tell you what, like, I didn't think this was real until CNN wrote about it. And I was like, oh, this is kind of real. So this little girl in the UK challenged him to a drum battle. And if you know who Dave Grohl is, then get the fuck off the show. Foo Fighters, one of the best bands, in my opinion, in the world. That's not metal. Metal's better, but whatever. They had a actual conversation where they challenged each other to a drum battle.
Dude.
And the fact that this should be the top news article of everything is beyond me. Like, I don't understand, why it's not, right?
Look up the history of the videos. They link the majority of them in this article, but they're so good. They're just hers and his. Dave Grohl made a song with his daughters, just saying that she won. Oh God, every bit of it is just amazing. It's so great. It's just a nice, happy, organic YouTube thing. Oh, that's a good pick, dude. That's a good one.
Yeah. So it was just kind of one of those things where it's like, I was very excited by this. Here's kind of, the video between the two. We're not gonna watch all of it, but
Hi.
On together.
Yes.
Do you want to do that?
Yeah, definitely.
She's so young.
Well, I'm not playing drums. I'll say that.
Okay, I'll play drums.
Okay, you play drums. I'll play. How about I'll play some guitar. You play bass. You play drums, and then we can both sing it together.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
It's all right. Bedroom is.
Ready, special.
Congratulations on having the coolest kid.
Her videos got popular because she basically did just like camera above drum set of like this chick just banging on the drums, and I believe she played the bass and guitar. Like she essentially played like the whole of Everlong. Like it's just it's unreal, unbelievable. Like she is an absolute talent. She's so good.
Human race, and I ain't gonna lose.
Not David Grohl. Hold on.
Yeah, she's awesome. So I highly recommend it.
I'm sorry, I don't know how to turn it down. I love Nirvana though. Like
That's what happens when you're on Instagram. Yeah, Instagram is just raw. Like I usually like the YouTube feed is a good place to check it out. So
I don't know,
dude.
I just for me,
it's happy. It's awesome.
For me, this was like, how do I don't know. Like I just love this so much, and it's like like good for her. Like she had all of this ability to, contact him.
Make music,
all these
man.
things happen, and what are we gonna do? From here. I don't know.
Well, sometimes the internet does good things. It still does. Like every once in a while, you see a nice thing that the internet makes. It connects like a who to a like holy crap, and it just makes something nice. Like the internet doesn't have to be horrible things, like the thing that you just put up.
Yeah, it's not a horrible thing. It's just a thing everybody ignores. If you all notice, I'm wearing a new sweatshirt. My MXPX sweatshirt. I got it.
Dude.
If you're sticking around this long and you want to join us in the after show, in a few minutes we're going to host an after show. And if you're on Patreon, you can go over and watch the feed later after it's been broadcast. But essentially, we have a conversation with just usually the three of us, but now it's only two of us, because Buddy is out sick or maybe sick. I don't know.
Humans near him are filled with sickness.
COVID, yeah, fuck COVID. But, we're going to talk about board games. We're going to talk about Trump. We're going to talk about I have to pee really bad. And we're going to talk about whiskey. And I don't know. Like, I don't know. Like, we have a lot of fun in our after show. So if you want to join us, join Patreon for as little as $1 an episode, which is usually $4 to $5 a month. Less than a cup of fucking coffee. You can sponsor the show. And 90% of the donations made to us go to sponsor other organizations. We never take an income. We always donate all the money every year. We never take an income. So we don't make money off that.
Yeah, we're closing it on the end of this year. We'll have to talk about what we're gonna do.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know, Hannah. It's been a trip, man. This is a great episode, and like
it wasn't what we expected, but it was a solid show.
Yeah, this is a commitment that we have to going forward because I don't give a fuck about Biden. I don't give a fuck about Harris. All I care about is how do we change the current climate, politics, and how do we fix things? Because Bernie's a compromise. That's my hashtag. Bernie's a compromise. Bernie's my compromise. Give me a progressive that can change your life, and I'll give you a vote, my money, everything to fix the world. I don't know. I don't know, man.
We'll see what happens,
man.
It
is. Scotch is good.
Yeah.
Music's good. Black Lives Matter.
They do.
And everything else sucks. Thank you all for joining us. We'll be back next week with another amazing episode, and no week off because of the holiday, because fuck Thanksgiving. It's racist. Thank you, and have an amazing night.